ambition measure up to the geniuses of the past? To find out, I challenged a team of top engineers to recreate the machines that changed history.
Are you ready to see what challenge awaits you this week?
Yep. First, we must rebuild each one, using only the original materials.
I really think we're going to struggle with this one.
Then use their 21st century knowledge to try and improve on them.
I think this kicks ass.
When they're put to the test, will they have upgraded a masterpiece, or will they have bitten off more than they can chew?
It's complete evil warfare.
It's present versus past, and the reputation of modern-day man and woman is at stake.
I think we can beat the ancestors and have fun getting there.
Welcome to my Build HQ. Here my team has everything they need to bring inventions of the past back to life.
This week's build will definitely be explosive. It really is rocket science. The people who originally attempted this engineering feat failed completely. It blew up in their faces, and some of them ended up in hospital. If our team can pull it off, they'll have beaten some of the best brains of the Second World War.
The year is 1944. World War II has been raging for 5 years. Hitler's troops had invaded and occupied most of Western Europe, but Winston Churchill and the Allies were preparing to strike back with the largest seaborne invasion ever, D-Day. As Allied soldiers tried to break the Nazi stranglehold on Europe, they desperately needed supply drops of ammunition and equipment. But the problem was conventional parachute drops were constantly being shot down by the enemy or blown off course, ending miles away from where they were needed.
What they wanted was a faster, more direct route from the plane to the ground, and that needed some clever thinking.
The scientists' audaciously bold solution was the rocket parachute. This was not a parachute drop in the normal sense of the word. 3 mini chutes would keep the load upright as it plummeted on its high-speed descent. Then at the last moment, the rockets would kick in, slowing the load down to a stop just as it reached the ground. Had it worked, it would have allowed the Brits to drop guns and vehicles to the waiting troops. Early tests dropped from a crane all ended in spectacular failure. It was an amazing concept, but try as they might, they couldn't perfect their design. Here at Build HQ, I'm challenging my team of experts to succeed where Churchill's boffins failed. And what's more, they've only got 3 days to do it. Luckily for the team, they've got a secret weapon. Chris may be a master carpenter, but he's also a part-time rocket man.
I do have a slender amount of knowledge about rockets. I've done a few different types of rocket jobs in the past, so I cannot wait to get going with this because it's so different to what we're used to. It's great to do something brand new, test everybody's inventiveness, and everyone's really enthusiastic about this.
And for special effects expert Claire, this time it's personal, because her father was a NASA scientist.
Now I look back and I would give anything to go to work with my dad at the time, which is why I'm looking forward to this challenge, because I'm going to be able to learn a bit more about what's involved in rocket building.
And Man of Fire, Owen the blacksmith, knows exactly how complex this task will be.
Rockets are just plain scary. I mean, yeah, they're cool, but what we're making is a massive amount of force.
Hollywood prop maker Matt's attention to detail should be perfect for this build.
Some of the best brains were used to overcome these problems, and we've got to take on those people, and we have 3 days to do it, so it's a real tricky one.
Whereas mechanical engineer Jamie is more used to tinkering with steam engines than rocket engines.
Rockets are a dangerous bit of kit. These old boys who were experimenting with them, take me out of to them really. That was a dangerous job.
Day 1.
Morning, team.
Morning, Dick.
We ready for this one? Big challenge. The best brains in Britain failed. Who's worried?
Little.
Team, you've only got 3 days. Very serious challenge. Good luck. Your blueprint awaits you.
Okay, let's have a look.
What we got?
I've given the team blueprints based upon recently declassified top-secret documents that Churchill scientists used during the war.
Okay, the rocket parachute. All right, I see parachutes.
That looks dangerous.
That's like a cradle then, so that your load's in the middle of there. A Jeep, in this instance.
Right, they've got quite a few rockets going on.
Are they all those rockets? There's loads of them.
This is how the design should have worked. A sturdy pallet carrying cargo up to a ton in weight would be dropped from high altitude. Travelling at up to 200 miles per hour, the load would hurtle towards its target. A set of small chutes called drogues would serve to keep the pallet upright as it free fell to the ground. The trigger hung from a line attached to the bottom of the pallet. When this hit the ground, it would fire the rockets into action, generating enough braking power to stop the load smashing into the floor. So this week, the team will need to build a pallet to hold their cargo, a rocket system, a trigger mechanism, and a parachute. The team must use their modern minds to triumph where the best brains of the Second World War were defeated.
Hang on, what's it said there? Final test status. Failed. Project closed.
All right.
What, out of interest, what did they fail on?
Trial result. Hang on, look at this. Jetty at test site destroyed. Prototype fired too high back into the air. Prototype rig buried in ground. Prototype rig flipped upside down. Payload destroyed. Right. Engineering workshop destroyed.
Well, that's this base done then.
A dangerous and technical challenge awaits our team, but science in this area has advanced tremendously in the last 70 years.
Well, of course, with car crash sort of technology, we know more than they did about how things are stopped sort of falling, so we should definitely go down that avenue.
And what about they've got their rockets either side? Do you know, is that what we would want to do?
You're supporting every single corner, isn't
Yeah.
you?
They obviously did this for a reason, because we've got to set these off all at the same time. If they're on the four corners and one doesn't go,
Yeah, that's a nightmare.
it just flips. And so we find out how many rockets we need and where we want to put them.
Well done, team. Good challenge.
Yeah. Brilliant. Different.
You know, it's beat the ancestors. Great brains tried to do this and they failed. How confident are we at this?
This is surely a task that has one challenge. If whatever you're telling us to drop survives, we win. Because that's the whole point of this whole device.
And if there's still an engineering workshop to come back into, that'll be amazing.
3 days.
This is a very big ask.
We've got to learn a lot.
Yeah.
Enjoy. Good luck, team.
Thanks.
I've given the team the cargo they must safely deliver to the ground, ammo boxes and an army-issue motorbike.
Basically making a big bike rack.
Yeah. What we definitely don't want is just a flat sheet of wood, because that will create so much drag, the thing would just turn over. So whatever you do design, it's got to come up, it's got to be full of holes.
Okay.
Whilst Claire and Jamie get cracking on their aerodynamic frame,
All right, let's make it 80. Then we've got 5 inches either side. That'd be nice.
the rest of the team start thinking rocket science. This week, they'll definitely be facing the most explosive challenge of the series.
This is a step into the unknown, and if it goes wrong, no one knows what's going to happen.
Normally, when we start making something, I have a very good idea of what it's going to be. With this one, we are going to have to test it to find out actually what it does in reality. Massive amounts of go wrong potential.
This week, the team are trying to build one of the most experimental designs of the Second World War. As the war intensified, Winston Churchill tasked a team of super scientists to come up with ingenious inventions to beat the enemy. This was one such device, the rocket parachute.
Will our team succeed where Churchill's scientists failed? Claire and Jamie are working on their pallet.
Just double check that.
That's right.
Got it right.
Yeah, that's right.
They have the cunning plan to make it aerodynamic by simply building a skeleton frame out of lightweight steel tubing.
Every time it goes square, you bloody move
Oh,
it.
sorry, it just didn't look square at all to me.
This will allow the air to pass through, minimising wind resistance and giving them a more stable descent. Everything about this challenge depends on the team creating a working rocket system. When they launch their rocket parachute, they'll only get one chance. So just like Churchill scientists, they need to run lots of tests first. I've given them some model rockets so they can experiment.
So these are the rockets we're going to use, Chris?
Yeah, they don't look much more than cardboard tubes, but essentially they're packed with black powder. They burn for 1.4 seconds.
That's pretty quick.
And the thrust, I think, was about 1 kilo
Okay.
per corner. Read instructions before use.
Best not to destroy the workshop at this early stage, is my thinking. I'm sure they took a lot longer to destroy their workshop.
So if we stick 2 bottles on each side like that and then 2 underneath, that's 4 kilos of water, which is the same weight as the thrust of the rockets. So in theory, our thing just hovers there.
Sounds perfect.
Who knows?
Overseeing the team's build, as always, is engineering guru Todd.
This is the first challenge where it actually is within living memory.
Yes, it is.
Modern equipment.
It's also the first one which never worked at all, so they've really got a problem this week.
The team are going to have to step the game up if they're going to win this one, aren't they?
We've given them some little model rockets, solid fuel ones, very similar to the ones that were being used Second World War. They can make up little test rigs and just see how those things behave.
But the big thing is, how do you control all that power you're going to unleash? Because these things, if they use more than one rocket, they all want to do their own stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that really is the difficulty, because the guys in the Second World War, they would put rockets either on each corner of the pallet or multiple ones down the side. And if you mistime those, if one of them lights before another, everything starts to become unstable. You know, that one fires, then that one fires, and everything's going everywhere. I'm looking at it from my viewpoint, and I'm thinking multiple rockets all over this is just problems all over it.
I've just leashed this thing to the floor so that if it does take off under this thrust, it won't sail off around the workshop.
Right, that's good.
It's not surprising Owen's not taking any chances. In World War II, Winston's wizards destroyed their laboratory.
We've positioned our rockets on the outside of the rig, which is similar to how the ancestors did it in wartime. I have a funny feeling it's not the most stable way to do it, but
Yeah, we'll get a pretty good indication.
we're going to get a good indication of what the issues are with this. In theory, we have a hover machine.
Yes, just enough
It's gonna-
thrust to overcome it.
Give it some of that and gently lower itself back to Earth, or it might do something different to that.
The origin of rockets can be traced back as far as the 9th century, when gunpowder was created by Chinese alchemists by accident when they were searching for the elixir of life. The solid rockets used in the 1940s were very like the original Chinese versions. They were still primitive and unreliable, and just like fireworks, once lit, they couldn't be switched off.
You ready?
Let's do it, yeah.
If the rocket system works, they'll be making great headway. Rig prepped, the team retreat to what they hope is a safe distance.
We might be beating the ancestors if this goes well.
Yeah, let's just not meet them.
Okay. I'm a little bit nervous. Are you nervous? 3, 2, 1.
Right.
That worked well.
That looked like a cheap firework.
So the whole idea that system there managed to just knock a workshop out, that kind of shows we don't want to do it like that,
Well, it
do we?
lifted it slightly, but then flipped the whole thing over.
Not a great result. The pallet was completely unstable. If it had a cargo on it, it would have been totally destroyed. The team better think of another plan, and quick.
Oh, well, look at that. Only 3 burn marks.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that might give it away.
Yeah, look.
Yeah, one didn't fire. Look at that. Okay.
How are we doing, team?
Oh, great.
Especially
Yeah, pretty good.
I'm not overly impressed. My motorbike's not looking too good at the minute.
Flipped over.
There's only 3 burnt scorch marks. One of the rockets didn't fire.
It would work great if they all went off in one go, but they didn't.
Obviously not, because our ancestors had this problem. Going back to World War II, that sounds exactly like the problems they had.
Okay. It shows that using multiple rockets in different places is not a good idea.
Why? Because you're worried about the control of it being unstable because they're not all firing exactly the same.
Exactly that.
Right. I've seen a big frame.
It's not that heavy.
It's a big light frame.
Very, very
Happy
light.
it's light?
Yeah.
In the day one. The rocketry's not sorted yet. How much more time is it going to take you to get that sorted, do you reckon?
Wow.
Come to the end of day 2 and see.
Yeah. Pressure's on, team.
It is.
Yeah. Good luck.
We've done this little test. The fact that it went up and went bosh onto its roof, little bit worried.
We've been experimenting and our experiments haven't worked, but that's not necessarily a negative thing. You know, we had the same problems the ancestors would have done with theirs, and, you know, that gave us one thing to tick off our list. Well, you know, I think that's positive. You've got to play something like this that way. It's got to be tried and tested, really.
The team have got a long way to go before they can solve how the rocket parachute needs to work. So I'm off to try and do some research of my own. I've come to Churchill's war rooms. It was here, as he planned and strategized World War II, that he realized he had to turn to the scientists in Britain's hour of need. Second World War historian Taylor Downing will be my guide.
So this is the Cabinet War Rooms.
This is it.
I'm looking around this room and I almost want to whisper, this is where the beating heart was of the war control.
It was, absolutely. This is the room from which the whole of Britain's war effort was coordinated and directed.
But in May 1940, we were well behind the Germans when it came to military technology.
The German army had defeated Poland, Norway, Denmark, France, Belgium, Holland, just in a matter of weeks of military campaigning. We had our backs to the wall, literally. But that's why Churchill wanted to hear what the ideas were that the scientists could come up with. He knew that this was going to be a war in which science would play an absolutely crucial role. So he doesn't just listen to what his military people are telling him. He listens to the scientists and to the boffins and the mavericks. He calls them the wizards. But it was just the sort of group that Churchill loved because he was fascinated by thinking out of the box and people who would come up with the solution that might just win the war for Britain.
The war rooms still hold records from the time, detailing Churchill's strategies and schemes. The rocket parachute wasn't alone. It was one of many bold inventions.
For Churchill to pull together a group of people to look at the science of war, very far-sighted.
Absolutely extraordinary range of ideas from these very inventive, very radical, very unorthodox people. So there was things like the giant panjandrum, this wonderful rotating Catherine wheel of a device.
Rocket-powered?
Rocket-powered, that would go up the beach and take a ton of explosives and explode right underneath defences on the beach. There was the Kapok landing system, like a sort of corridor across the water that motorcyclists would ride through. Somebody had said, we've got to get the motorcyclists onto the beaches early in the landing, so they invented this sort of floating roadway. And then, of course, there was the rocket parachute, this brilliant idea to help drop heavy weapons to support the paratroopers who'd been dropped behind enemy lines with really nothing but what they could carry. These were just the sort of ideas that Churchill loved because they were going to give him the advantage over the other side that Britain desperately needed in the crisis hours of the war.
It's the start of day 2. In case their rocket system doesn't do its job, prop maker Matt wants to up the odds of getting a soft landing. It may look like he's just playing with new rules, but he's taking inspiration from car safety technology, testing materials for a crumple zone for their pallet.
Interesting. No bouncing. So tubes work. Okay, so I've tested all my platforms, the toilet roll sort of thing, lots of padding, and you've got tubes as well, but it just bounced upside down. The same with the egg box. There's no air passing through it, it just bounces. But then we come to our cardboard tubes, and it just dropped really well, and they crumpled. And look at that.
Matt's cardboard cups have achieved a vital thing here. They've absorbed the impact of the fall.
That's really promising. because we can obviously make that bigger for a crumple zone option underneath our pallet. So tubes, no bounce.
Matt's idea to use crumple zones has been around since the 1950s, when they were first introduced by Mercedes-Benz. Before this, cars were simply built to be strong. But the engineers took a leap of imagination and realised that if they designed the front of the car to collapse, it will absorb energy during the crash. The front end acts as a shock absorber, whilst the main body of the car stays in one piece. Matt plans to use cardboard tubes, aerodynamic and hollow. Crumpling on impact, they should increase the chances of a survivable landing. And that's not the only modernisation. At the other end of the workshop, Chris has come up with a new idea for their rocket system.
Well, it seems after the last test, we were a little bit on the uncontrollable side. We were hugely unstable. So obviously, it makes sense to go for one central rocket.
It makes it more stable, doesn't it?
It makes it more stable. The other thing that became apparent from this is that once one of these solid rockets is lit, it doesn't turn off again. So the next logical step is the more complicated step, is to make a hybrid rocket.
Kind of makes sense, doesn't it, really?
But it's so much more complicated.
Chris has chosen a hybrid rocket because you can have more control over the thrust. A hybrid creates thrust by burning two types of fuel together. In this case, a gas and a solid. The clever thing about a hybrid is, if you want to stop it, you simply turn off the gas. A single rocket placed centrally should make the rocket parachute more stable, but it means bad news for Claire and Jamie's lightweight frame.
Now then, you two, we have a slight change of plan.
Yeah?
I don't like change of plans.
Only slightly.
Right.
What we are going to do is slightly change your frame in that the rocket is now going to go dead centre.
Where the motorbike would have been
Where the
sitting.
motorbike was sat.
So where's the bike going to go then?
Not in the middle anymore.
Yeah, somewhere else.
We're going to have to distribute the weight evenly around the rocket, basically.
Yeah, we'll worry about that when the time comes. We've got to get the powerhouse sorted and then, you know. All right, let's get on.
It's really important the pallet and cargo are perfectly balanced. If not, it could flip over, destroy the payload, or worse.
When you're dropping things out of aeroplanes or from helicopters or anything like that, if they don't land perfectly flat, as soon as you put your rockets in, it's going to try and flip over. You know, and in turn, it could aim at us. This thing could come flying at us, you know, and no, I don't really like the idea of that, to tell you the truth.
Our team have taken on one of the greatest projects of World War II, but one that ended in spectacular failure: the rocket parachute.
The team's entire build hinges on making a functioning rocket system, but they've only got a day and a half left. Whilst Chris gets to grips with the body of a test hybrid, Owen is prepping the rocket fuel, and he's made a surprising choice: plastic.
So I'm going to cut some chunks of this up and then put a drill hole through the middle, and the inside of that is going to have nitrous oxide pumped into it, and it'll get this burning at an incredible rate. So, I mean, it doesn't look like fuel. This thing's going to cook.
Plastic is perfect rocket fuel because it burns at high temperature and releases a lot of energy. Invented in 1907, plastic was first used as fuel for hybrids by the Americans after the Second World War.
In there, we've got our plastic fuel, rather unlikely looking fuel. We've got the thing that's going to get the fuel lit to start with, and then a whole bunch of oxygen literally hosing in there that's going to create hell inside there. And all of that hell is going to come out of that hole.
Hope so.
The team needs to measure the amount of thrust their model generates, because as their rocket parachute descends with a downward force, the thrust is the upward force that will put on the brakes. But it's a fine balance. There's too much thrust and the pallet will launch back into the sky. Too little, there'll be less of a soft landing and more of a crash landing. Using their ingenuity, the team have laid their hands on some bathroom scales to measure thrust.
That looks nice.
So, isn't it? Push it against the scales, you get a reading.
A simple setup. The pushing force of the rocket will give the amount of thrust in kilos. The team have calculated that their rocket parachute will weigh 300 kilos, so they need at least 600 kilos of thrust.
Okay, nitrous going on.
This is a tense time. If their hybrid system doesn't work, they'll never beat the ancestors.
I don't know about you lot, but I'm a bit nervous.
Yeah, definitely.
This test will be deafening and dangerous, so they've rigged up a camera and monitor so they can watch from a safe distance.
Let's give it a go.
Go for it.
Okay, so 3, 2, 1.
What a thing!
That is wicked.
Wow! That's incredible.
Well done, mate. That was brilliant.
Is anyone else's heart really going?
Yeah.
But for all the impressive noise, there's a problem.
It didn't go above 1 stone.
Really?
I think it's maybe sort of 8 or 10 kilos, something like
10
that.
kilos of thrust is not enough.
Looking at it, you'd think it would be producing more power. It's quite amazing.
That was absolutely phenomenal to watch and listen to, and it's 1/60th of what we need.
Yeah.
So we've got to make 60 more rockets then.
Well, my heart can't take 60 times that amount of stress.
The team needs 600 kilos of thrust. That means they'll need to make one 60 times more powerful. That's an unbelievably massive, dangerous rocket.
That rocket was not very powerful, which completely shocked me because it scared the life out of me. I've actually got, I guess it's an adrenaline rush because I did not expect anything to be that loud. It didn't do very much, which is kind of ridiculous considering what was going on. We've got to build something 60 times that size, which is kind of ridiculous.
Imagine the machine we're about to make. Imagine the rocket we're about to make. It's going to be out of this world. Maybe, hopefully, not literally. It doesn't bear thinking about what can happen if it doesn't go well.
The team have just 1 day left to complete their rocket parachute. Changing the steel pallet to accommodate the huge casing of the rocket.
I like the way Matt's written on the board, optimistically finish rocket.
As one job.
As one job, yeah. We'll take that off before lunch.
They must get the ratio of weight to thrust correct. If the pallet is too heavy, the rocket won't break its fall and their cargo will be destroyed. However, Claire has spent the last few hours strengthening the pallet and adding weight.
Claire. At some point, we're going to have to weigh this.
Yeah, I'm literally just want to put these spacers in and then we can put it on the floor.
Yeah, but our rocket weighs 100 kilos.
Right.
Our bike weighs 140 kilos.
Yeah.
We've got our nitrous tanks. And then we've got to weigh this pallet.
Yeah.
In an ideal world, our rocket will produce 600 kilos of thrust, ideally.
Yeah.
We have to work from an idea that we try and make this as light as possible while still keeping it strong.
Well,
right.
yes, but it's just strong enough now for what we need it for. But I just need to finish these last...
Do you know what? I wouldn't even finish that.
Look, just 2 spacers. I'm going to finish them and then we can put it on the floor.
But what, we need to take them off again? That's what I'm saying. Do we just want to weigh it before we do anything else? This scenario is one where it's not like our other builds where we've been building big and everyone's busy, lifting heavy. This takes a little bit more of a soft touch, you know? We're building our most powerful machine to date.
It is complicated to get the right balance between strength, yet being light, and that's the problem. The problem with this rocket that's going in the centre is that thrust, it's going to give so much thrust that that's where all the strength has got to be. It's a fine line getting that right.
While most of the team worry about the weight of the pallet, locomotive engineer Jamie has been put on sewing duty, making a small parachute called a drogue chute.
This is worse than a Rubik's Cube. It really, really is.
The trouble is, he's more comfortable with steam than seams.
This is terrible. How the hell do people use sewing machines every day?
Drogues are also used by drag racers and jet fighters to provide stability as they break. It's a vital bit of the build, as without it, their rocket and pallet could spin dangerously out of control.
It's funny, isn't it? It doesn't seem big enough, but then again, it is just a drogue chute.
It's amazing, isn't it?
If you two can slide that in while we'll move the frame. You just flick that side.
Across the workshop, Owen is assembling all the parts of their massive rocket.
This is our last fuel element. So this thing is now packed full of burnable fuel, and I've got the injector, which is going to have nitrous oxide coming through it. It's a tube with some plastic in, one awful, scary tube full of plastic with nitrous oxide pumping in at one end and incredible flames coming out the other. I don't know how close I'm going to want to be to this when it goes off, to be quite honest.
A hybrid rocket is a controlled explosion, but any malfunctions and it suddenly turns into a big bomb. Luckily for the team, it's not live until it's ignited. Talking of triggers, Matt has designed a system that will fire the rocket into life.
This hangs from below our pallet from a long piece of string. The moment this plumb line, this weight, hits the ground, bang, that sends a signal shooting up our wire to our rocket, which bang, we have, fireworks.
Looking at this stage, here we are, most of the way through day 3. The way they're going to put the rocket together, I can see components, but they've got a lot of work to do to get it together yet.
You've got the tube in the middle, which contains all the pressure. That will have the fuel cells inside it. That'll run down through pipework through the switch system, which is for both on and off. And that then goes through into the oxidizer tanks where the nitrous oxide is.
As the rocket parachute drops, a trigger hangs 15 meters beneath the pallet. This hits the ground first, sending an electronic signal to open the valves. Nitrous oxide floods the chamber, and whoosh, the rocket explodes into life.
To beat the ancestors, the team have to deliver the payload on the pallet to the ground in a usable state. What can possibly go wrong?
Jamie's parachute might not hold the weight, so the whole thing falls to the ground. The rocket has to fire. The pallet has to be reasonably level. If we can get the rocket to fire at the right kind of time and we get any kind of retarding effect, I will call that, in my personal sense, a victory, because I think that'll be a huge achievement.
Okay, other side.
The team are reaching a critical stage of the build as they load the final elements onto the pallet.
Right, upright, yep. And then put the bottom end in.
If not handled correctly, the highly explosive canisters of nitrous oxide can easily blow up, taking out the workshop and everything in it.
Whoa, stop doing any welding at the moment. We need to cover all this delicate gear from welding. Yeah. Well, we've got to be incredibly careful. We need to cover that hole there.
Matt is attaching his crumple zones. They should hopefully increase the chances of the cargo surviving the landing.
That sits in the middle.
At the top.
Jamie's drogue chute must keep their massive rocket stable and stop it from spinning out of control. The team have built a serious rocket. It's nearly the size of an Exocet.
If it's got enough power to stop a falling motorcycle, then it's got enough power to launch itself sideways for a few hundred meters, potentially. Yeah, I'm building up towards an incredibly large amount of respect for what we're actually doing.
With the rocket parachute assembled, it's time for the weigh-in. Only now will they find out whether they've got the thrust-to-weight ratio correct. If it's much over 300 kilos, the rocket will never break its fall.
Okay, she's up. So, what we got?
Well, we very briefly hit 380 with 376, which is slightly heavier than we wanted.
376.
The pallet is too heavy.
So we're sort of in that don't know area, aren't we?
We'll find bits of steel we can take away.
Yep.
We can get it a bit lighter.
The team must remove some weight and redress the balance, but that could leave them with a weakened pallet. And if that wasn't enough to worry about, their powerful rocket still remains untested.
I'm feeling good about this. I think everything will come together on the day. I think the rocket will fire, and I think it might be a heavy landing, but I think it'll be a survivable landing.
Test day has arrived. Will our team's 21st century tenacity triumph where the best brains of the Second World War fail? After just 3 days, the team have finished building their version of Churchill's rocket parachute.
I don't even know if the pallet's going to survive, let alone the motorbike inside it. I'm worried that the whole pallet may fold up in itself. There are things we wanted to do to it that we can't because we can't put any more weight on, and we've only got one shot at it.
I don't think anyone with any sense would look at standing in this field, or perhaps this county, or anyone sensible in the world would do this test with a solid rocket. Now, obviously, the guys in World War II did, and maybe we've learned from that, and maybe that's why we've gone for the hybrid route, because you can turn it on, equally you can turn it off again, and that's what we'll do.
Looking at it, you know, we're dealing with a lot of unknowns here. You know, I'm relying on the rocket to do its thing to see if my crumple zones do their thing. Are they going to come to the rescue? Who knows?
The team have had no chance to test the rig. They'll only find out if it works when they drop it.
Well, there's a fairly good chance that this thing will work just as we planned it. But how do we know, though? I mean...
This week, they'll have just one chance to beat the ancestors. They're challenged to deliver their cargo to the ground in a usable state. And to test just how soft the landing is, I put 4 trays of eggs on board.
Are we going to tie our ammo crates down?
I'm actually going to make little woolen slings for each egg.
Are you?
Yeah.
Just like Churchill scientists, they'll be testing their rocket parachute from a huge crane. Except ours is a £1 million, 120-ton jib arm crane. And they'll be making their drop from 45 meters.
That is high.
Yeah.
The way they've actually set up their pallet, they've got a bike on one side, they've got the cargo on the other side, and they've got all the bottles, of course, but they have to try and make sure the centre of gravity's right.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, because this pallet has to fall straight. It can't fall at an angle like that, because then it's going to get drifted off by the thrust of the rocket.
The system they've got there, we've got it hanging up from the parachute.
Yep.
The parachute's really got to open to actually give them that bit of stability before the rocket fires.
I mean, that sort of cross shoot, that's a standard sort of shoot for things like dragsters and jet fighters landing onto aircraft carriers and so on.
Have they overcome everything? Is it going to fire?
I'm certain it's going to fire, actually.
Todd, how far away is safe? Let's not be shy here.
Yeah. Scotland.
I think we've done as much as we can.
All right, great.
The motorbike is secure.
Let's move forward to the next stage.
It's judgment time. the team will only have one explosive chance to beat the ancestors. This week, it's do or die.
I think it'll work. As long as it fires, I think it's got at least a 60%, 70% chance of working.
I was about to say you've got to be positive, but that doesn't necessarily mean that being positive means you think it will work.
I really hope the rocket goes off. I think if we get that, then we've achieved something at least.
All right, team. You know, Churchill had some of the best minds in Britain working in the Second World War, and they didn't manage to do this. You know, so to win, you have to actually land softly the cargo. The bike's got to work. The ammo boxes, you know, they're full of eggs. Yeah. We haven't seen the full power of the rocket yet. Yeah. What could possibly go wrong at this stage?
The parachute, rocket, crumple zones, motorbike holding devices, anything else?
Oh, all of it. Yeah. At the moment, the ancestors must be a little bit cocky here.
I think they'd be deep in thought going, yeah, we've been through all this, we know your pain.
Right, I suppose we've come to the point now. This is the last chance. How many do you think we're going to get a soft landing out of this?
I'll still put my money on it working.
Really? Good
I
man.
want to be confident. I want it to work.
Let's do it.
All right. Okay, take it up.
Once the rocket is lit and idling, they'll only have seconds before they're committed to the drop.
Oh my God, it's up.
Wow,
Oh wow. Now it's real.
That is high.
The silhouette, look at that silhouette.
That is cool.
Oh wow.
There it is.
Team, good luck. It's got to survive this.
Good luck, guys. Insane. It's up.
Get ready to run. Get ready to run.
Okay, here we go. Ignition.
Oh, deck.
Oh, right. Idling.
Okay, it's idling.
Okay, here we go.
Oh, team! What happened? The rocket fell out! The rocket fell out!
What happened?
Hang on.
Whoa. Can I just say, that doesn't count as a pass. I'm very, very sorry.
Fine. I want to claim a victory there. Look at that bike.
Yeah, it's still standing.
Just to make sure you understand the challenge, a gentle landing. I'm afraid you did not beat the ancestors. I'm sorry.
We lost fair and square, and so did the ancestors, so that puts us in good company.
That was really exciting. That was wicked. I think there was obviously too much force which just blew the top off. It basically blew up. Like up.
It's a mess. And the guys in World War II, they can keep it. I don't ever want anything to do with any place again.
No?
Look, there's a backlight.
The pressure inside the rocket seems to be far higher than we thought about, and it's literally blown the top off. All the gas didn't come out of the bottom, all the gas came out of the top. Disaster.
Some of these hoses are completely trash.
Your crumple zones, mate, yeah, what'd they do?
The crumple zones did a job. I mean, they didn't do a fantastic job.
Look at the hose, look.
Wait, look, that's a full egg.
Yeah.
Does that mean we win?
Is it full?
Yeah, look, there's nothing wrong with that. It's been an amazing ride. It's been absolutely brilliant to attempt this, that our living memory ancestors tried. It's a brilliant thing.